everyone, welcome to our channel. I'm Kate.
And I'm Stephanie.
And together with you, we're Three Heads. Today we're talking about a flipped classroom. It's something that many moons ago when we heard about, we were like, horrible idea.
Ridiculous. Why would you do that?
But as with so many things,
Yes.
we learned during the pandemic that there were maybe some hidden benefits and that it was more applicable to the ELA classroom than we had initially given it credit for.
Yeah, I think we also, the time difference between them, technology has made it so much easier to implement than it was when we were first hearing about it.
Yeah. When we first heard about it, we were like, where are they supposed to watch these videos?
How does one record a video?
But now that everybody can record a video.
And most schools do give students devices.
It becomes a lot easier.
It sure does.
So maybe you're interested in considering flipping your classroom, or maybe you're wondering, like we were initially, how does that work in an ELA classroom? We're going to give you some tips about ways that you can easily, maybe not even fully flip your classroom, but try it out with a few different things and see how it works for you.
Yeah, and we talk on our podcast about the benefits and how, and you'll kind of hear some of those mentioned here as to ways you can kind of pick up on some of those, take advantage of them. And if you just have no idea what we're talking about, that's on the blog.
So what?
So the first thing, I think this was a humbling thing for me to realize, is I think as teachers, we get in the habit of giving a lot of lectures because we're so smart and we have information to impart to you, and that's what school is, and I'm supposed to be teaching you things.
Or even if you're more humble, I know everything because I have the teacher.
Right. And then when you start to think about it, often our lectures were not necessary. I think we used to start every unit with like a PowerPoint about that literary term, and it was like straight out of the textbook, like it was, but you know what? You could also just in the middle of your like worksheet be like, P.S. a simile is this, which one of these is a simile? And you know what? They did just as well on that question as when we made them take notes. And so I think take a lecture that you usually give, especially one that, you know, you feel like is really important, students take notes on. Ask yourself if it really is necessary, or is there some nugget of information you could build into the assignment? Like we started to just do that with literary terms. Instead of lecturing on them, we would just define them in the text. And, you know, as the first time, you know, we weren't asking AP seniors in May, like telling them what a simile was. But you also can ask yourself, is there a video? Like, could I assign an ed puzzle that covers this content just as well as I did, if not better, really? Or record yourself giving that lecture in a screencast. And we talk about some of the benefits of doing that on the podcast, but that's an easy enough way to just kind of tip your toe in the water a little bit and say, okay, well, this is one of my lectures. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think that if it's a lecture where it's a literal lecture, it's just you talking, imparting this information, sharing these examples, whatever it is. And there's really no engagement on the student's part other than to take notes or complete a graphic organizer or something like that. It's not a lecture in which there's a back and forth. It's not a lecture in which you talk and then students talk amongst themselves. Then that's something that's really ripe for being adapted to, like Stephanie said, a screencast embedded within an already existing assignment. So think of those things, and I think every teacher has them, of when is it that I'm the only one doing the talking? At the end of the day, I'm the one that's tired because I did all the work. Those type of things are really things that you can easily flip.
Yeah. And now there are platforms like Nearpod and Puzzle where you can even embed questions into your screencast to hold students accountable for watching it. So if that's a concern. In a kind of similar note, look at an assignment that you maybe traditionally guide students through, where maybe they have a list of questions or they have some kind of reading with like discussion questions attached to it, and see if you could shorten it. First of all, that was another humbling thing, is we thought that like, gosh, there's so many important things to talk about, and it was like, no, we're cutting it down, no more than 10. And we kind of realized, okay, we can often shorten these assignments because when they were doing their work at school, also, you have to shorten it. You have less time to get through it. And then we would be like, okay, can we put a structure into it? Can we add sentence starters, some kind of support to make it easier for them to navigate this on their own? And then can I then just give them feedback on it? So instead of me overseeing or almost micromanaging their completion of it, can I put more time into the feedback I give them when they're done?
I think this allows for the differentiation that we are so often told we need to have, and we know we need to have, but feels so impractical in the traditional classroom setting. It enables you to differentiate in a much more natural way. You don't have it. It doesn't feel so obvious when you are differentiating, because some things students are like, oh, I don't need to watch a video for that, or oh, I don't need all of these extra tips. And so that's a nice way to differentiate without calling attention to what you're differentiating. It also enables you to have sort of some more real-time feedback as to what is going on with your assignment. And we've all been in that position where all of a sudden you're like, okay, attention everybody, on number 7, when I ask, this is what I mean. But when you're doing your assignments like this, you can do that for more important things than it's often
typo.
Include the actual answer in my answer choices, or I didn't ask a question, a typo that changed what the right answer was. But it enables you to see, oh, okay, multiple people are getting tripped up on this question, or they're not understanding what it is that I'm asking of them, or they're not understanding the text, or things like that. It enables you to call the class to attention, and then you're really contributing to their understanding as opposed to you doing the work for them.
Yeah, or spending a lot of time going over something that 3/4 of them got just fine on their own, but you're trying to help the 3 kids who didn't, and
Yeah, for sure.
Similarly, take a look at a project that you normally assign. And again, if you're experimenting with trying to flip your classroom, this would be particularly good for when you usually assign students to complete on their own. Maybe they started in class and then they have a few weeks to finish it. Take a look at one of those projects and ask yourself, okay, could I break this into some pieces? Could I record a screencast walking them through each of those pieces and then have them complete it in class? And what that allows you to do is to kind of test out that whole idea of, as I'm walking around, I can, one, see how they're completing it, which gives me feedback on my lesson plans, but also, okay, like, you're doing a great job, but like, you need a lot of help, so let me stand over here and help you. And so it's, I think, having that long chunk of time, even 4 to 5 days where they're working on a project and you're able to just be there to help, I think we realized that was a really valuable, probably more valuable than them doing it outside of class. And it also, I think, when you can break it up that way, sometimes it is like you actually can get through it that's why, sorry, my brain was like half a thought going. I think that when you give them 4 or 5 days, and just say your project's due, well, then they won't work until day 4. But when you say, okay, part 1 is due today, part 2 tomorrow, part 3, it really helps them to kind of pace that out, and it feels more manageable for everyone.
I think also recording your directions as a screencast, and like Stephanie said, I would break those up. We found out the more screencasts we did, the easier it became for us to see, oh, we're going to want to break this up. We're going to want to break this up. But especially with directions, think of sort of like the traditional way you present a project. Okay, I'm going to spend 1 day in class. I'm going to explain the whole assignment. I'm going to go over all the directions, and then they're going to work on it. Well, we all know when somebody explains a project to you that you haven't started on yet, yeah, I get it. It makes sense. That's fine. Or, no, I don't understand what is going on. But when I don't do that in class, and instead they're watching those screencasts or listening to those screencasts as they're going, then what they're hearing is related to the task that they're doing today. And then those students who need to hear it multiple times can hear it multiple times. Those students who need to see the visual of what you're talking about as you're talking about it have that. And so I think that's a very powerful experience, and it stops you from, I don't want to say wasting your time, but I'm going to say wasting your time, explaining the directions multiple times to people instead of helping people who are struggling with the project itself. You don't want to spend your days just repeating the directions over and over.
And it's also really nice to be able to teach those students who like to have their hand held. Maybe they don't even need the help. They just like having someone saying, do this, now do this. We would teach them to hit play, but you have 2 tabs open. And if I say do something, pause, do it on your screen, and then go back. And some students really came to like doing things that way.
Yeah. It's like you're sitting there with them.
Yeah, and they loved it. Another one you might look at if you're thinking about a way you want to try flipping your classroom is look at a reading that you usually have students do on their own. And to be fair, if you look at a strict definition of a flipped classroom, that is a flipped classroom where they read on their own and they come in and talk about it. But as we talk about in another podcast about why we went no homework, look at a homework assignment where they had to read it and then you'd come in and talk about it. Maybe they didn't do a great job, like they really struggled to understand it, and consider turning that into more of an interactive guided assignment, whether that's embedding questions in the text, whether that's turning it into a Nearpod, something where students can be walked through the text little by little while you're there to not walk them through it yourself, but to walk around and help students as they need it.
I think another thing that we found to be really helpful was as a revision tool, whether there was a question that we anticipated was going to be difficult and we knew we were going to have to revise it, or something we expected students to understand, but they didn't, then we would do a revision screencast. It would walk students through explaining the question or explaining the passage. And we would often include timestamps as this is what we're talking about here, this is what we're talking about there, very much like you see on many YouTube videos, so that students could go to exactly where they needed the help. And then as you're walking around and offering help to those who need it, when a student says, I don't understand this question, okay, well, did you listen to that part of the screencast? No. Okay, well, listen to that part of the screencast, and then if you still have questions, let me know. And again, much like with directions, it's stopping you from just being a reader, a tape recorder, and allows you to actually work with students on clarifying their understanding. So it can be a very powerful tool to really personalize learning as much as is possible when you have 40 people in a room.
Bonus, saves you a lot of time grading when you do that, because you can, if you notice, well, this is a disaster, you do your screencast, and then in your comments you write, please review screencast, please review screencast, and there you go.
For sure.
This is kind of a small one compared to all of these things, but if you have access to a program like Actively Learn, Nearpod, Edpuzzle, something like that, not only does that let you, especially with Actively Learn, which, sponsor us, we love you. You can embed links, you can embed videos, you can embed questions into the text itself. And so in theory, that was designed more to be that students would work while the teacher provides live feedback. We tended to use it more as they work while we would walk around and answer questions, and then we'd provide feedback at the end. But you can see their real-time answers, which is really helpful, one, to kind of track their progress, to see what's a realistic timeline, who needs to get to work, who says they're working, and clearly they aren't.
Right.
But it also lets you see, oh, shoot, everybody's getting this wrong. Let me pause them and help kind of clarify that.
Yeah. Everybody, I'm reciting question 12.
You all got it wrong. And then one other thing you could try if you're interested in seeing it, you want to test out some of these benefits, you want to see if it works, is kind of, and if you've listened to some of our other content, this was kind of the way we taught toward the end, but give your students like a menu for the week. Tell them, here are your 6 assignments. They're all due on Friday, but you can use the time however you like. And just kind of watch, like
to work on assignments for this class.
Not like free time.
From the menu.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta clarify. But then watch them, like see how they do with it. See, oh, we have some like work habit issues here that like, let me talk to you about how to manage your time. And I think it's, even if you're not sure you want to go that way full time, try it for a week, right? And maybe it's a weird week and there's a lot of testing going on and students are in and out of class. Try it out and see kind of what you learn from that, how that works with your students, what you like about it, what you don't. I think that's a relatively easy way to start to test this out.
Yeah, and it's definitely a very easy way and a very effective way to get a bead on the productivity of your students. So you can see, oh, I can see you got this under control. You, my friend, do not have this under control.
You, my friend, have been doing grammar for the last 4 days.
So you could intervene a lot earlier than you can in the traditional setup. We hope that you found this helpful. If you have more questions about the flipped classroom or our version of the flipped classroom, like we said, be sure to check out the related blog post and podcast. If you have questions for us about what we've talked about today, be sure to pop those in the comment section down below. We'll chat soon. Bye!